What's up, Spellslingers? My name is Garion John Wells.
I'm Drew Flitton.
And I'm Cory Janibagian.
And this is Untap
Upkeep.
Drink. Beer up.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Untap Upkeep Drink. We're talking about Theros Beyond Death, the new set that's coming out. All of the spoilers have come out at this point in time, recording this as soon as they did, so that way we can give our opinions on what's going on. Hopefully give some insight into what is going to happen over your pre-releases, and that way you can at least jump in with a little bit of knowledge if you haven't just memorized everything.
Yeah. If you guys follow this podcast at all, you'll know that at least one of the three of us are big fans of enchantments. So I'm going to let Drew lead this one. What's going on? Why are you excited about this set?
I think we should start with Cory, because Cory has no way to interact with enchantments ever.
Red player. I think before we even dive into the hype, because I know we're all hyped, we should just try and get through some of these beers.
Let's start off with mine. The one I've got is from Hopkins Brewing Company. The coffee cream, I believe it's just the milk stout. I haven't actually tried this beer.
I was going to say the can just has coffee and cream, and it's one of those, limited run growlers where they just wrote it on there.
Yeah, it's a crowler. So
do you know for sure if this is a stout or a porter or an ale? Or
I believe it is a stout, yes.
Stout. Cool.
And it smells like cold brew coffee.
Oh, man.
And it tastes like a cold brew mocha.
Oh, yeah, that is... Okay, I like that one because that one's got the real harsh bitter of a cold brew coffee with like those subtle cream without it being like sweet. You know what I mean? That's not a cloyingly sweetened coffee. That's just kind of like maybe a half and half kind of in there. And then underneath all that is just that ting of malt stout. That one's really, really good, actually.
Yeah, it's super enjoyable.
The aroma is really just like a cold brew coffee. Like there's no alcohol presence. And like both of you were saying, it's really mocha, just those chocolate and coffee notes forward. And then you get some of that maltiness. It's really dope.
Yeah.
We're moving on to this one here. Today, Daddy's got the All-Day IPA Session Ale from Founders. It's sitting at 4.7% ABV and 42 IBUs. So I can only imagine this is going to be a bit bitter. Hopefully, the nose is pretty fruity, so hopefully it sticks to that theme. Okay. So not nearly as bitter as many of the IPAs we've had. It doesn't linger quite as long. It's not fruity, but it is a little sweet. Like, I could see this being labeled as a juicy IPA, but it's definitely pretty hoppy without being crazy, crazy, clingy bitter.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of hop aroma. But I think they did really well naming this a session IPA because, like you're saying, Gary, it's not crazy. There's nothing standing out, and it's got a little bit that citrus, sort of mellow, fruity flavor. If they did call this a hazy IPA, I wouldn't even be surprised.
If we ever brew an IPA for the show, we should call it the Citritickle IPA, to where it's just that little tickle of citrus. That's what this beer has.
Patent that.
Patent pending.
But yeah, this is really good IPA.
Yeah, I like it.
It's kind of weak.
Yeah, it's not crazy in your face.
It's mellow.
Yeah,
it's
mellow.
Sessionable.
Like,
And that's what, I think that's why they nailed the name.
I wouldn't call it hazy because it is really clear, but it does like some juicy
hazy
notes.
Spirit.
Yeah, right. Juicy notes. Not really like super hoppy, not really super malty. It's just kind of like middle of the road, which I don't know how I feel about, honestly.
Yeah, I think usually, especially with the IPAs we try and get powerful ones or crazy, like
well, it's not necessarily
very characteristic ones.
Yeah.
Ones that have a lot of, or a distinct flavor. And this one is just sort of in the middle of the road.
Yeah, I think that calling it a session ale is accurate.
Yeah, we usually don't say this IPA is too chill. We usually say they're not chill enough, but this one is pretty chill. Okay, so I've got the Griswold's Holiday Ale from our little old Red Rock Brewery. It's 8.5%, and I couldn't find IBUs, but it's probably on the lower side. So it's very holiday spicy, as you might expect. It's your pretty standard, almost like a red ale with just a lot of that clove, cinnamon, allspice that you think of with like holiday spice stuff. And I think it's almost like a cider in that regard, but it's a lot heavier just because it's an ale. I don't know. Maybe it's because we're past the holidays. I'm not the biggest
the novelty
fan
is
right
worn
now.
off.
Yeah.
Honestly, like when I was smelling it, it reminded me of that like applesauce beer. Like on the nose, it has like all of those like flavors.
It's a little
on the
like
nose,
that.
it has all of those aromas. Yes, I taste through my nose. It's crazy.
Freak.
Yeah. But then as soon as you said red ale while I was smelling it, it was like immediately just like, yeah, this is like a spiced red ale.
Yeah. Which I think it's really good, but I don't know.
Ooh, it's really smooth too.
Yeah.
Like this, is it, what kind of, is this a cream ale? Like what is
It
this?
just says ale.
Weird.
Ale brewed with spices.
Yeah, it's
It's an ale brewed with cinnamon, coriander, ginger, orange peel, and clove. It is holiday-ish and celebratastic.
I mean, yeah, I can agree with that. Like, it kind of reminds me of all of the spices that you get for a pumpkin pie, and then you're just like, you know what? Let's just throw that into a cream ale, and then just call it good.
I'm a basic white bitch when it comes to this kind of beer. I thoroughly enjoy it. That whole, top 5 spices kind of thing that just all mixed together.
Yeah.
I mean, it is past the holidays, so we're not really feeling that emotionally, but it's still just one of those. I can't not like those.
Oh, yeah.
flavors,
It's not harsh or disagreeable in any way.
extremely smooth.
Yeah.
That's a good beer.
All right, so let's just give the major ideas what we're talking about here today. Obviously, we're talking about Theros, the new Theros. And so there's a lot that is going on with this set. But for us, what we usually do is we like to talk about how we're going to evaluate them in like non-EDH environments as well as EDH environments. So we're just going to kind of go through all of that quickly, kind of give our top cards that we like out of the set for each of those categories, and just kind of move on from there. As we get into it, what do you guys think about the set itself? Like, what is the hype level?
Flavor,
No.
8.5 out of 10.
Okay.
Power level, I think we're back down towards the, M20 kind of feel. I mean, there's some
This is not
real
forced.
powerhouses, but I think this is a much more balanced set, which
Right.
we were talking about before the show. I like, because we're not looking at some crazy cards that have just entered the format. They're like, how is this even possible? I think this is a really draftable set. I think it's going to be a really cool standard edition. I think it's going to fit into Pioneer. I think a lot of these cards will find homes.
Yeah, I think that Pioneer's like the format that this set is like best for right now, because like a lot of the devotion decks were built from
be wild.
the bones of Theros, right?
Yeah.
And so now it's like, hey, we're getting these new goodies in
new
here
toys.
that also care about devotion and like all that stuff. What about you, Cory?
Yeah, I think Melissa and her team over there just working on the set, I think just like Garion was saying, it's a lot more balanced set. And I think drafting this set will be especially fun.
Oh, I'm so pumped on draft on this one. There's so many things to do.
Yeah. And I think this year for the sets, instead of having just giant blocks like we usually do, just having one-off sets, I think points them to make these more balanced, sort of self-contained sets with pieces that you can pick out and do with all the other formats that we have. And I think this is a really good one, both flavor-wise, because ancient Greek mythology and stuff has always been super dope. And I think just the power level is a lot more balanced, especially after coming off
to the last.
of Oka.
Yeah, I was going to say, look at the last like year. Let's look at we've got Eldraine, we've got Corset, and we've got Ravnica. A couple sets of Ravnica.
Yeah, obviously it's higher than the core set, and then the Ravnica block was weird because the Planeswalkers were on such a crazy spectrum.
Yeah, from War of the Spark, there were some that were like broken as hell, and some that like didn't really fly
and then
anyone's
just
radar.
Planeswalkers just in standard, and I guess in most formats are just a different type of beast. But I think just that Ravnica block was pretty powerful, and I think Throne of Eldraine was too powerful in some ways, and it sort of broke.
Yeah, there was some just like
some standout
insanely
cards broke a lot of formats. Talking about you, Oko.
Yeah, if a card gets banned in 3 formats, like that's
that's a red flag.
Yeah.
So I think it's a good middle point. I think obviously we have yet to see how people are going to break it because it's going to get broken, but I think there's a lot of good cards.
Yeah, I think looking at this and comparing it to recent years, or sorry, just even the past year, like the Ravnica sets, the first 2, Guilds and Ravnica Legions, both of them only had 5 color pairings that they were focusing on, and so that was way more detailed in those sets.
Yeah, they could focus on
Yeah,
those a lot
exactly.
more.
And so they had those specific synergies between like the color pairings that overlapped. So for example, we had like Surveil and Jumpstart, which was great because Surveil lets you put cards into your bin, and then you needed those cards in your bin for your Jumpstart. And so like you could get, really cool mechanics flowing back and forth. Whereas now, especially you look at Eldraine, and there was definitely some color pairings that were significantly stronger than others because of the mechanics they had.
Yeah.
So just trying to segue here into the actual archetypes in this set. But before we do that, Cory can talk about the major mechanics that we're seeing here.
So the major mechanics, there's one new one, but the rest of them are either previous mechanics or mechanics we haven't seen for a while. And so one of the previous mechanics is Sagas. And
Those were Dominaria the first time?
Yeah.
Have we seen them since?
No, I think Dominaria was the first one. So they're just enchantments, and they're weirdly structured enchantments because they
Have multiple effects instead of just being like a constant thing.
It's basically so after your draw step, you put a counter on it, and then it does something, and then once it has the last counter on it, it's sacrificed.
Yeah, they're I think for this set especially, they're very flavorful.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're the strongest thing that we can put in there. There are very good ones, but they're definitely 10 out of 10 flavor for this.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think the same.
I think that Sagas are just insanely good for storytelling, right?
Yeah.
Like
I think they're about as flavorful as you get.
like they not just the art, but like even each individual
'cause you can have
part
so
of the
many
saga
modes.
that tells what the story is.
Yeah, I think these Theros sagas they suffer from the same problems as the Dominaria ones, in that they can be really powerful, but they're just kind of slow and unwieldy.
and obvious.
Yeah,
there's no hidden information.
Yeah, but the fact that they're enchantments in an enchantment-based set obviously make them a ton better. So, which ties us into our next mechanic, which is Constellation, which basically, Constellation is back.
Yeah,
we go.
the fact that Sagas and Constellations are in the same set makes me super excited.
Yeah.
Because Sagas are enchantments, and Constellation cares about enchantments.
Yeah, so this is an old mechanic from the old Theros block.
Hype.
And it just basically says when an enchantment enters the battlefield, do blank. Or blank happens, stuff like that.
And so the Constellations on this set, for the most part, are a little bit different from the original because the original Constellations triggered when that card entered the battlefield or a different enchantment did.
Yeah, and they counted themselves.
Yeah, exactly. And so Constellation was strictly on enchantments and enchantment creatures.
Yeah.
And now we've got legendary creatures, normal creatures that have the Constellation text. So we get cards that don't trigger upon their resolval.
And so the next one we have is Devotion, which is another mechanic coming back. And this one was tied into the gods. And this mechanic just basically cares about the pips that you have on cards.
The actual colored symbols in their converted mana cost.
And so it relies on permanence. And there's just cards that say, if you have Devotion to this, then this is a creature.
Yeah.
Or you lose or you deal damage equal to your Devotion. So you just count how many pips you have, and then it does that much damage.
And while this mechanic, again, can be really strong, it's also personally my favorite as far as lore goes, because it's literally you have to devote yourself in game to those colors, which is like devoting yourself to the gods that are in this block and saying, I worship you, here's my reward, which is just so tight.
That's awesome. Yeah, there's one creature, it's like, I think it's one of the legendary creatures, and she's twice blessed, and both by like Nylea and Thassa, and like you see that in the flavor text that they say that, but like what she does and the mechanics there kind of reflect that she's green and blue, and that's something that's really cool as well. Like it's just insane on the flavor level.
Yeah, and I think just having the Devotion mechanic back in this set, sort of like how Drew was alluding to earlier with the Ravnica block, the color pairings, it limits you a lot more than in Throne of Eldraine, where you can go 3 colors and more. But in this set, you're going to be looking for either 2 colors or less. To just
you
try
really
and
want to get dense
focus
with that Devotion.
Yeah.
I think Melissa and her team have to have been so stoked to formulate this set for so long, because it's just our last mechanic is even deeper into the Vorthos of the story of this block.
Yes. Yeah. So this last mechanic is Escape. And so this is a brand new one. And it's weird. We have feelings about it.
There are some feelings.
And it's basically just an ability on a card that says you can pay a mana cost and exile some amount of cards from your graveyard and cast this card. You still have to obey timing rules and all that stuff, but you basically just get to cast it again. So this is similar to the Amonkhet cards, where you can recast those creatures and put them back, but they come as a token and embalm. That's what it is.
Yeah.
And
Or like the flashback mechanic.
Yeah.
Where you could recast it for a different cost.
And then I guess it's most similar to Jumpstart, where you exile a card or discard a card and then pay the mana cost and then it gets exiled.
But it's repeatable.
Yeah, so that is the big thing, that Escape doesn't get rid of the original cards. You just exile other cards and pay a separate mana cost.
Right. So with Embalm, the creature just came back as is, and it's more similar to Embalm than it is Eternalize. But again, the point is that we're not making tokens out of these creatures. We're actually taking them and bringing them back with all of that added benefit. And some of them, as part of their escape, if they've been cast through the escape ability, then they get +1/+1 counters. And so like you're bringing them back bigger and better.
So I think it's some great flavor.
Yeah, it goes along with the storyline of Elspeth basically coming back.
Yeah, Elspeth and a lot of, I mean, they're the demigods of the set. So new creature type, which is cool.
Yeah.
But they have come from, I mean, if you know Greek mythology, you know, your friends, your family, they don't die in the same way as what we think about normally, right? They go to this place and theoretically can come back from that place. And so that's kind of the idea, is that they have escaped from the underworld. Erebos basically is trying to bring them back in. So like Erebos is very, I think, strong in the story as far as it's concerned here, and has like his own devotees that are trying to like help him out there. And so like that's kind of like the big thing here, is that we've got gods, demigods, and just like regular people who shit's happening and they're trying to figure it out. And luckily Theros is kind of like Innistrad, where on Innistrad, when Shadows over Innistrad and all that shit was happening, it was like, hey Ma, get my pitchfork. And then when like, you know, all the Eldrazi shit is like, Ma, get my big pitchfork. You know, it was like the change is like, hey, it's werewolves and shit. Now it's like, okay, now the werewolves have tentacles. Like, cool. Like,
yeah, we still gotta get shit done.
Yeah, it's just, you know, and like people on Theros have these beliefs and these gods, and it's like, yo, this is crazy, but magic is real. So
yeah, this is our way of life. So it's just, that's why I think this says, just like Throne of Eldraine, just 100% flavor.
Yeah, I was going to say, what I said last set with Throne of Eldraine was that, oh, this is so cool, it's tied in with flavor. What I'm going to say this set is that, oh, it's very cool and tied in with flavor, and it's also tied in with the previous story that Magic has been going on. So I think if you're the type of person who has been considering getting into the actual lore of Magic, right now would be an awesome time, because you're going to backlog everything.
Be careful, because there's so much that you're going to fall into a rabbit hole.
It is a slippery slope.
But it's going to connect with everything you're doing today as you play, or during your pre-release once these cards come out. So I think it's an exciting time for those people who have followed the story, and if you want to get in, I think it's going to be a good time to like really see what's going on.
Plus, the best character in Magic is in the set.
Ashiok.
Elspeth.
Oh, damn. Chad.
Perforos.
There is like a pseudo Chad card, which is really cool.
Yeah, I thought that's one of my favorite cards, just because she makes Gideons.
Yeah.
It's so good.
It's like nostalgia, and it's like a little bit of, you know, like
it's just like, yeah, we get it. He's gone, and but he'll never be forgotten. Yeah. And so we'll never stop bringing him back.
So speaking of what these cards do, let's run through some of the mechanics we're going to see in sort of the color pairings and the synergies we can find in this set.
So first one we got white blue. White blue is just on this one. Basically, it's just control. So the white blue signpost card is Staggering Insight, and it's a aura. Creature gets +1/+1, has lifelink, and whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. So it is kind of like a more aggressive, but the auras, I think, are the emphasis. I think that white, blue, green are kind of the aura heavy.
This is the worse curiosity, right?
Not curiosity, it's
Curious Obsession.
Yes, that's Curious Obsession.
It's worse because it costs twice as much as
Curiosity is whenever this creature deals damage. I mean, and then Curious Obsession is when this creature attacks. And so it's like
it's a combination of them.
Yeah.
It has to be combat.
I think it's really cool.
Yeah. It is
still very good.
Yeah. It's solid. And then they've got the rare, which is, again, a flying creature. So blue-white sky is probably going to be a thing. Yeah.
Sphinx, it's like Dream something.
Dream Trawler. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that card's really good.
It has potential, but again, it cares about drawing cards and, you know, when you have,
both good things.
Yeah.
All the good things.
But no, it cares about drawing cards and the control strategies, right? It's 6 mana to get the rare out. So like, and you have to invest a lot into it if you're trying to protect it. So kind of tells you what's going on there. White black is a little bit graveyard theme, a little bit life gain theme, and I don't think black white quite has been fleshed out as well as some of the other colors.
It feels very Orzhov, but in the completely non-aristocratic way. Like there's not a lot of sacrifice stuff going on, but there's typical kind of life gain.
Yeah, the
death.
uncommon signpost card, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield, or target aura, or both. So like again, white has the auras, the kind of the rebirth theme again with that Orzhov.
Yeah.
And again, there's a lot of life gain shit going on there. So I don't know, like Orzhov is Orzhov.
Yeah, it's the problem with Orzhov is that it's always like graveyard and centric and stuff like that. And in this set, every color has graveyard mechanics.
Yeah, graveyard.
So it kind of takes away from that.
Yeah, exactly. So white red, we've got tokens, go wide, aggro. It's kind of par for the course.
Yeah,
these
pretty
days.
standard stuff.
Team Heroic, I like that.
Yeah, Team Heroic is super cool. So the old Heroic mechanic from Theros was that if you targeted the creature, they'd get a +1/+1 counter and some other effect, or just more counters or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
so
this one now, I'm calling it Team Heroic because it's like that, but a little different.
So I think it's interesting that they, instead of bringing back the heroic mechanic, they just didn't bring it back at all and just had that on certain cards.
Just as abilities.
Yeah. Which I think it's less confusing, but I think it kind of takes away what made these cards special.
Yeah, and so instead of giving them actual +1/+1 counters, they get +1/+0 or +0/+1. So they just like that team buff, but it's all of your creatures if you target that creature. So it's really cool in that sense.
This next one is my favorite thing that Drew has ever typed on an outline. Just the punniest of puns. Green, white, enchantress-esque.
Enchantress. Yeah. So
almost enchantress, but
yeah. I mean, it's trying.
There's one enchantress.
Yeah, there is, and I'm
really
super pumped on it.
Super
It's not
good.
just an enchantress. All cares about +1/+1 counters. I will get to that one. So we got Siona, Captain of Pyleus, and so she cares about auras, and like specifically, whenever you attach an aura you control to a creature you control, you make a token, which is cool because enchantress and aura strategies generally have like a Superman, right? Like you're trying to build that up and just like one punch your opponent or like hit them as fast as possible. You don't really go wide, which means that your defense is really, really lacking and you're susceptible just to, pull the pin out and everything falls apart.
Yeah, so quick highlight about that card is that it goes infinite with gift or immortality. So people are already busting it. It's fucking dumb.
But then she also helps you just find an aura.
Yeah, she's just a really good 3-drop.
Yeah. I
if
think
you had to guess what Dimir would do, black, blue.
they've got mill, they've got self-mill, and there's a lot of really cool interactions with the self-mill side. And all three of us would have put it on our top 5 had I not put my top 5 after these guys did. So we'll get into that card specifically.
Yeah, I think self-mill is really good just because every color has the escape mechanic. So every color
allows you
wants
to feel
cards
that.
in their graveyards.
Yeah.
Which is different.
Black-green also has some self-mill going on there. The Golgari graveyard matters. They've got the regrowth, self-mill, there's some escape. It's just your graveyard matters. And that's kind of the idea there. The black-red is heavier on the escape than most of the other colors.
Yeah.
I think that's like the core mechanic there. There's also some really nice sacrifice and kind of aristocrats strategies going on there, which is a lot of fun, including a couple theft cards, which generally when I see those cards, I think that there's probably going to be an aristocrats or sacrifice theme because that's the way that those decks utilize removal.
Yeah.
Blue-green, we've got +1/+1 counters, devotion, that sort of thing. Obviously, blue-green, you're probably going to have a little bit of ramp and you're going to have some big fatties.
Yeah, blue-green doesn't need any help.
Yeah.
They can stick with the standard stuff and still be good.
Blue-red, this is probably my favorite blue-red set for a while because it's so different from what you normally expect, right? It is a Spells Matter pairing, which is exactly what you'd expect. You're like, why is that different? Because most of the cards that care about you casting spells care about you doing it on your opponent's turn. And it's like the first spell you cast, ... something happens, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's draw a card, which is, I think, the most powerful one there, or like you get to pay an extra mana and like deal 1 damage, or just the creature gets buffed, or whatever it happens to be. There's just a lot of really cool workaround with casting a spell on your opponent's turn, and that's going to be very, very hard in most formats. So like, I don't know, I think that it's like a big risk to take, especially in draft, but if you can pull it off, I think that the value that you'll get off of it could just be massive.
Yeah, and I think them bringing back the flash mechanic on a lot of these enchantments helps that strategy a lot as well.
And the last one is red-green, and I've just called it high power matters, specifically 4 or greater. And so a lot of the red-green, if you've got a creature with power 4 or greater, then when it enters the battlefield, such and such happens. When you cast it, such and such happens.
Play big fatties and attack.
Yeah, it's just combat heavy.
Yep. Sounds very gruel.
All right, so let's give our top 5 for non-EDH. So we're talking standard, Pioneer, Modern.
Your
Pioneer.
more constructed 60 card formats.
Yeah, probably not looking at Legacy, Vintage, or Highlander, but I think there's actually some decent Highlander playables in here. Cory, in no particular order.
So the first one I put was Kiora Best's The Sea God. So this is one of the new sagas. I think it's got some awesome art, but it's a 7-drop, so it's kind of crazy. But I think it's just a really good finisher in blue. And the first thing it does is creates an 8/8 Kraken with hexproof, which is really powerful. The second one is tap all non-land permanents target opponent controls. They don't untap during their controller's next untap step.
Freeze everything.
Yeah, so I think that alone could have been good enough. And then the last one is gain control target permanent and opponent controls untap. So if you don't win the game by the time this gets sacrificed, then I think you're doing it wrong. So I think this is just a good way to close out longer games, which is probably what you're going for in a blue control strategy.
Yeah, if they don't have a board wipe or a non-specific removal, then you just hit on them for 8 for free, basically.
Yeah, like you got time. This grants you so much time to just get in there and finish them off.
All right, second one on your list,
next
save
one
for last.
Okay.
Third one on your list, go ahead.
So the next one I have is Storm Herald, which I think Drew and I will talk about later on in the episode. But it's basically, when it comes in, you get to take all the auras from your graveyard and put them on all the creatures that you have. So I think this is just a really cool build around. And you can just cheat stuff out, which I think is really powerful, especially in constructed decks, where you can just put stuff in that you will never play and just cheat them out. So the next one I have is Thassa's Oracle, which is just a different kind of lab man, and it just pays attention to devotion. But this one I think is a pretty unique effect, even if you don't lab man with it. So it's a blue for a 1/3 merfolk wizard. When it enters the battlefield, look at the top X cards of your library, where X is your devotion to blue. Put up to one of them on top of your library and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. If X is greater than or equal to the number of cards in your library, you win the game.
No matter what, this is a 1/3 for 2, and you get to basically scry 2.
Yeah.
All right, and
the last one I have,
but not number 5.
Yeah. The next one I have is Drag to the Underworld, which is an uncommon, but it's 2 black, and it costs X less, where X is your devotion to black. So in a black deck, it's almost always just going to cost black for an instant that says destroy target creature.
Yeah, this one, every single time I see it, I'm just glad that it's an uncommon. Just for like pre-release and
seriously.
Yeah, and that it's target creature instead of permanent.
Yeah.
Or non-land permanent or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. And this one, again, all flavor. This is literally Erebos dragging people back to the underworld with his whip.
Yeah, I think this card is... I think everyone knows how good this card is, and I think this is just really good card building, where it's balanced unless you make the right deck for it, and then it's just super bonkers. So the last card I have is Prerelease, Bronze Blooded, and I think we're going to be talking about this card a lot through this episode. So this is one of the new gods. It's 4 and a red for a 7/6 legendary enchantment creature with indestructible. As long as your devotion to red is less than 5, Prerelease isn't a creature. So that's the clause that they're bringing back from the old Theros gods. On the monocolored ones, the multicolored ones have 7 or less to both of their colors. And it makes for some interesting interactions when they're not a creature versus when they are a creature. So the other abilities are other creatures you control have haste, and then you can pay 2 and a red. You may put a red creature card or an artifact creature from your hand onto the battlefield. Sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. Oh my god. So Sneak Attack is a fair and balanced magic card, and
you have to spend mana to put creatures onto the battlefield. And they fixed it because maybe people thought it was broken. So now you can only do red and artifact creatures.
Yeah, so this is, I think it's a more balanced Sneak Attack, but it's still Sneak Attack.
Still only costs 3 though.
Yeah.
It's still.
Yeah, it's.
Yeah.
And like you were saying with the gods, once you start playing with gods for a little while, like we were just talking about your card before, destroy target creature, this isn't a creature until your devotion is high enough. And so a lot of times these gods feel really hard to interact with because it's a legendary enchantment until it's a creature.
Indestructible.
Legendary enchantment. Yeah. So it's
legendary indestructible Sneak Attack.
Yeah.
So Garion, you prefer to interact with your creatures. Your first one there is something that your opponent doesn't even have to. You can just put in the graveyard for,
Dude,
you have to pay to put
this
in
was
this
just
one's
so
cool.
fucking tight. I mean, it's a Sultai card, even though it's a Simic card. You know what I mean? In flavor, it's 1 green blue for Euro Titan of Nature's Wrath. It's a 6/6 legendary creature, Elder Giant. Artwork 10 out of 10. When Euro enters the battlefield, sacrifice it unless it escapes. So this is one of those ones we talked about that has the escape mechanic, but it basically dies if you don't cast it through escape.
Yeah.
But because of that, it has its own ETB effect.
Yeah, and it's super good. Whenever it enters the battlefield or attacks, you gain 3 life, draw a card, then you put a land card from your hand on the battlefield. So for 3 mana, you gain 3 life, draw a card, put a land on the battlefield. Then you can escape it for green, green, blue, blue, and exiling 5 other cards from your graveyard. So once you escape it, now this is an actual 6/6 that you gain 3 life, draw a card, and put a land in from your hand onto the battlefield every time it attacks.
Yeah.
I was going to say, for 7 mana, right? For 7 mana, you get 6 life, 2 cards, and you can put a land onto the battle. Sorry, 2 lands onto the battlefield. Would you pay 7 mana for that?
And it's
for just that, it'd be okay. The fact that I can do that every turn,
yeah.
After it's out, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
pretty damn good.
Yeah, the cost on this one, obviously you're probably not going to get like turn 3 this, turn 4,
Yeah.
That just because of the escape. But if you can,
I was going to say, that's where these escape cards are really weird for me. Because if it, like you said, if it was 7 mana for that once, that's a hard bargain. But knowing that throughout the game, I could potentially dump my mana into this anytime I need to.
and you have the resources for the escape.
Yeah, I think that's where this thing starts to become pretty cool because you run into that point where you don't have anything you can play that's going to affect the board. Escaping this card will always affect the board. You're going to gain 3 life, draw a card, and potentially play a land. That's always going to be at least good, if not really good.
Yeah, so they essentially brought the Titans back.
Yeah.
And this is just a little baby, harder to get version of Prime Time while doing different things at the same time, which I think is dope.
While having some resiliency.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would even say it's like a baby version of Prime Time because Prime Time is just in a league.
I mean, Prime Time is 10 out of 10. This card's probably like a 2 out of 10 when compared to him.
Yeah.
But I think it's a similar kind of effect.
All right.
My next card is Ashiok Nightmare Muse. It's 3 blue, black for a 5 loyalty legendary planeswalker. I'm going to run through this really quick. You tick up to create a 2/3 blue and black nightmare creature with whenever this creature attacks or blocks, exile. Each opponent exiles the top 2 cards of the library. You can tick it down 3 to return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand, and then that player exiles a card from their hand. You can tick it down 7, and it says you may cast up to 3 face-up cards your opponents own from exile without paying their mana cost.
Don't have to be exiled with Ashiok.
Yeah. So
Correct.
if they
Just
escape
in
stuff,
exile.
you
Yeah.
can still cast them.
So I really like this. Ashiok's one of my favorite characters in Magic. The alternate art of this card is incredible. Probably my favorite artwork of all time.
Yeah, there's a lot of cool promos and stuff in this set.
I think this just fits really well with a control strategy. I think she's just going to be... She's not broken. She's not unbelievably good, but she's good. You know what I mean? I think it's just definitely playable, and I really like it. Then we've got Thassa's Oracle again. We won't read that again, but
Crazy.
Quite good. And then I have another Ashiok card real quick. Ashiok's Erasure. 2 blue for an enchantment with flash. When Ashiok's Erasure enters battlefield, exile target spell, which the way that it's worded makes it hard to review this as a counterspell, but a spell is on the stack. You exile a spell from the stack. So you don't just counter it, you exile it. Your opponents can't cast spells with the same name as the exiled card, and when it leaves the battlefield, return the exiled card to its owner's hand. I think this is just a really good counterspell. I really like it, and it prevents spells from ever happening again with the same name.
Yeah, 4
Not
mana
ever, but-
counterspell is kind of high,
Yeah.
but it's an enchantment that does it.
Yep.
So I'm on board.
Yeah, it sticks around. It's Nevermore mixed with a counterspell.
Bumps your loyalty, or
Yeah.
your devotion, sorry.
There's a lot going on, but yeah, I think it's really good.
My last one that I really like is Siona, Captain of the Pyleus. She's 1 green white for a 2/2 legendary creature human soldier. It says when Siona enters the battlefield, look at the top 7 cards of your library. You may reveal an aura card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. So obviously, this is in an Enchantress shell. You're looking to cast enchantments several times throughout the game, and this just helps you dig through your deck in Selesnya. I like it.
Okay, Drew, what you got?
First one on the
You
list.
got a banger. Number 1.
Yeah, so this card was like such a like, holy shit, really?
Yeah,
I was so excited that like I only saw the like the borderless one, and I literally sent it to our group chat. I was like, yo, you guys see this? Is this real? Like I was like, I needed someone else to I needed someone else to validate. So first one is Idyllic Tutor. The last time it was printed was in Morningtide. So it's an expensive card. I don't think they've really reprinted the powerful cards from the Morningtide Shadowmoor sets. So this is like, holy shit, this is happening. This is real. So it's sorcery. It's one of our tutors. For 2 and a white, you can search your library for an enchantment card, reveal it, put it in your hand, then shuffle your library. This is going into Standard. This is going into Pioneer.
This is so playable in everything.
With ley lines in, like, I mean...
Yeah, Leylands and the gods now, and then who knows what other broken things will
there's a lot of good enchantments out there that people are surprising me by running in Pioneer, and this helps you find them if you need. Next one we've got is Gravebreaker Lumia, 4 and a black. Enchantment creature, Snake Lumia, lifelink, and whenever it enters the battlefield, search your library for a card, put it into your graveyard, then shuffle your library. So it's Entomb on a creature. If you can flicker it, you can do that multiple times, and then it also has spells you cast from your graveyard cost 1 less to cast. I love graveyard strategies. I love Reanimate and that kind of deck style. This card is entirely up my alley as far as it being an enchantment. On top of that, it's also just a 4/4 body with lifelink, which is just going to be good in most formats.
Yeah, it's just a really good tutor for helping your deck just run.
Yeah. Next one I have here, I'm not entirely sure if this one is actually going to see real play, but I'm kind of hoping it does. Enchant creature or enchantment. Enchanted permanent is an enchantment and loses all other card types. This is really important for like the gods and anything else. It can't become a creature, but it's called One with Stars, and it's 3 and a blue. And I think it's probably going to be more of a commander card, but I think that it has potential in other formats just because it is a very difficult to interact with piece, and it shuts down like the big creatures that do everything.
Yeah, it's a really weird card.
Yeah. Next one I have is Archon of Sun's Grace. Again, this one's probably more of a commander playable than it is through like normal 60-card formats, but I think that if there is like a Bogles deck, that this card could be insane. So it's flying, lifelink, Pegasus creatures you control have lifelink, which is an odd line you'd think normally, seeing so it's an Archon itself, but it also has Constellation. Whenever enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, create a 2/2 white Pegasus creature token with flying. So that'll have flying and lifelink with this thing out there. If you're just like pumping this up, a 3/4 for 4 mana that has flying and lifelink is already a pretty good rate. If you're pumping it up with enchantments that also, you know, cause you to shit out other 2/2 flyers with lifelink, you start to win a race very fast.
Yeah, you can just play garbage and this card will just win you the game.
Yeah. Imagine a 1 mana aura that...
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be auras, right? Like, you don't have to do Bogles. You can just put out things that gain you life or something like that.
Literally just garbage. Just trash that says enchantment and you're winning.
Exactly. And the last one I kind of grouped up into 2. I probably should have grouped it up with the other one, but we've got Cetessan Champion. This card, one of my favorite cards from the set.
So good.
It's Human Warrior. It's a 1/3 for 2 and a green, and it's got Constellation. Whenever an enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on it, and
draw
a card. So this is the Enchantress from this set. It's an Enchantress with a reasonable body. Usually Enchantresses are like 0/1s, 1/1s. They're pretty weak.
Body.
And it also can just get pumped over and over again. So like Bogles, here is your target. Also just, you know, every enchantment is a cantrip. And to protect that, I've got Destiny Spinner, 1 in green, enchantment creature, human, creature, and enchantment spells you control can't be countered.
Very powerful.
Like there's literally nothing more than I want to read on a card than that. But it's a 2 mana 2/3, which is fine. I mean, better than fine, let's be real. And it also has an activated ability, 3 in a green, target land you control becomes an XX elemental creature with trample and haste until end of turn, where X is the number of enchantments you control. It's still a land. So I think this goes in any format that cares about Enchantress, cares about heavy enchantment decks, whether it's Pillow Fort or otherwise. The biggest problem with those decks often is closing the game. One of the biggest ones is just to turn your creatures or turn your enchantments into creatures and then attack with them and just like win an all-out swing. This one lets you say, okay, I've got 12 enchantments, now I've got a 12/12. I'm hitting you because it's got trample.
Trample's the huge one.
Yeah, and I think just the fact that it's a 2-drop means it'll always come down before you start building your board up. So
and before you need to protect your spells from counter spells.
Yeah, I was going to say, hopefully before the counters, yeah.
Yeah, so I think it's a really, really solid.
I don't know if you guys know this, anybody that's playing Pioneer lately, there was a Bogles deck at the last little event I went to, and it was already strong. I think the guy went 3-1. These are going to be good tools. I like this. I like this a lot.
Yeah. Next one I want to talk about is the unloved, unplayed, and underrated. So specifically, I want to look at, see if there's like top commons, because we always talk about the rares and the mythics and shit like that.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that there's not like the
signposts.
backbone cards of the format, which are the commons. Talk about the uncommons as well, and maybe what we think is a card that might not be getting the recognition it deserves. Cory, why don't you start us off?
So one that I put is just Thrill of Possibility. So it's 1 in a red for an instant. As additional cost to cast a spell, discard a card, draw 2 cards. So
Red card draw.
it's red card draw. Obviously, it's
draw.
conditional because you have
It
to
draws
discard.
2.
But I think the fact that this set cares so much about things being in your graveyard,
Yeah.
I think this is just a really powerful card. And it's just common, 2-drop. So I think
Common draw 2. Thrill of Possibilities in my Storm deck. It's one of the cards
Yeah.
that like discarding. I don't, I'm fine with like a deal.
It's
Exactly.
another way to bin an Arclight Phoenix.
Usually when you see discard a card, it's a super downside. But I think this set, it's an upside in most cases.
And then I put on here for our top commons, Stern Dismissal. So Stern Dismissal, just for one blue pip. That's all you need. You can return target creature or enchantment to its owner's hand.
Damn.
So this one, I mean,
At
unsummon-
instant speed.
Right, at instant speed. So Unsummon was a card that we've had for a long time. Just creature to your hand, go away.
Good.
This is great for protecting your enchantments, protecting your creatures, whatever. But it's also just, hey, nice god. You paid 4 mana for that. It's not a creature yet. I don't care. Go away.
Yeah, I think that's another reason why this set is so well balanced, because they printed all these crazy banger cards, but they also have these
And some
answers
tools,
that are
yeah.
at common and uncommon level that people can actually get.
Yeah.
So it's not like you have one copy that's going to win you the game, and I also have one copy that's going to help me not lose the game, but
Yeah.
I can never get to it.
Yeah, I think
Now
when Garion
have
said
a couple answers.
tempo, this is exactly it, right?
Yeah.
Like you think of, 3, 4, 5 plus drop CMC card that they're, building their deck around essentially. And you just whoop for 1 mana. It's great.
Just help
All
you
right.
get back.
What about uncommons?
Hydra's Growth we've got on the list. It's 2 and a green for an enchantment aura. It says enchant creature. When Hydra's Growth enters the battlefield, put +1/+1 counter on enchanted creature. At the beginning of your upkeep, double the number of +1/+1 counters on enchanted creature.
So I was watching the Loading Ready Run pre-release last week,
Shouts out.
and a lot of people were using this, and it got out of control. Like there were people with like 200 plus creatures just running around. Like the fact that anything that says double something on a card is obviously powerful.
Yep.
So I think this is just one that people need to pay attention to.
So you said double, and the first thing that comes to mind, obviously, doubling season. Can you imagine this, the doubling season?
God.
First time when it enters the battlefield, right? That's 2. Then you put another 2, which is actually 4. So they have 6. Now that's actually like
Yeah.
Math, baby.
And the fact that it's 3 mana to just get that going.
And it's an enchantment. There's a
hard to
critical mass of enchantments, and of course there's going to be some enchantment removal because we need that in the set, but I just don't think there's going to be enough. So you're really going to have to pick what enchantments you remove. And I think that's going to be the tipping point of winners and losers when it comes to pre-release and constructed when you're moving into these enchantment decks. Like you have to know what the actual threat is.
Yeah.
You're just not going to be able to deal with them.
If you look at the removes, like destroy target artifact or enchantment, usually we're like, this is
Yeah,
a sideboard.
sideboard.
But put those in your
These
main
are
deck.
main boards.
Just
Absolutely.
put that every single time. All right.
Yeah, this is a kill on sight.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that Stern Dismissal kind of fits in this next category, which is a card that isn't/won't be getting the recognition it deserves. I think that a lot of people are kind of sleeping on Stern Dismissal. I think it's still one of the top commons. But Cory, you got another one on here.
Yeah, so I put Mystic Repeal on, and it's just instant for just a green, and it's put target enchantment on the bottom of its owner's library. So you usually don't see this effect on a lot of cards, especially new cards.
No, this is super rare. Enchantments, we destroy them.
Yeah.
Right? And that's just like the mode that's always been, or exile if you're in white.
Yeah, but the
And
fact
so it's kind of like, I kind of spoiled it with Stern Dismissal.
Yeah.
But I think that the conversation we had, something that is exactly correct. And Cory, what did you say that was just like oh yeah, this card is good?
it was just the fact that this gets rid of gods. Like if you have a god, like with Stern Dismissal, it's just like, I don't care that you have the god, it's just back in your hand, and then you have to waste a turn playing again. This
Which
does
is
that
good.
even more because
Yeah.
it just puts it on the bottom of their deck.
Now they don't
So
have
they
it.
may never get it ever again through this whole game.
Yeah. And there's going to be other enchantments, but like when you said it was a god killer, I was just like, oh yeah, it is. Like for all formats that play gods.
Yeah. You guys go into pre-release, if you pull a couple of these, they are uncommon, so you don't see as many of them, but these are definitely I think they're main boards.
Yeah,
people are going to drop
one
one
mana
you
removal
will
spell.
always.
Yeah.
Yeah. If
There's so many enchantment creatures, and that's the thing, right? Is that with gods, like my thought on gods when you were talking about that was just like, well, what if they become a creature? Oh, it doesn't matter because they're
Yeah.
still enchantments. Exactly.
Yeah,
and I was like, oh yeah.
that's the
nice.
thing with the gods specifically, because they're all indestructible. You either have to put them in their hand, or exile them, or with this weird effect,
Bottom.
put them on the bottom.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yule tuck.
Exactly.
All right.
Who thought they'd bring that back?
Before we jump back into these beers, I just want a real quick synopsis. Your dream draft for this set. You got 3 packs. You got a full table. What is the top thing, whether it's card or archetype, that you want to try and draft?
All right, so we're literally dreaming. This is the best that could ever happen to me in my life.
If you're dreaming of this, she's gonna fuck you up. That's what she does.
You're not lying. Ashiok Nightmare Muse. I really, really like the card, guys. But what I want to try and do is draft an Esper Control. I think there's enough within those colors to kind of lock things down. It's not perfect, of course, because we're not in constructed, but I think it would be really fun to try and hit this with a couple of the real good counter magic type cards, and then just really lock things out and play some dumbass Kraken threats or just some big fatties.
Yeah.
I think it could be fun. I like it.
Yeah, definitely on the dream list because I don't think Esper is going to work super well in this because I just don't think they have the color fix in it.
Yeah, I think that's how they designed it, specifically that 3 colors and above are hurting real bad, which it's okay.
Yeah.
Maybe we just go Dimir Control. How about that?
Hell no, this is Dreamland, bro. Esper.
True.
Yeah. But I do
Splash
want to
that
pull
way.
an Ashiok. If we're talking about dreams, I just want an Ashiok. That's what I want. The alt art Ashiok, please. To the gods of magic.
All right.
This
Cory?
is a card that I don't want to pull, but in a dream draft, I'm okay pulling it. It's Galia of the Endless Dance.
Dude, I love this card.
Guys,
card
the
is
art
sick.
is so fucking weird.
It's
I like
awesome.
Yeah, it's
But it's bad.
They're totally safe.
it's like when it's good, it's insane. But when it's not, it's
anything but that.
Yeah, so it's red and a green for a 2/2 legendary creature satyr. So this could be your commander. I don't know.
Uncommon.
I don't know if that is what you want. With haste, other satyrs you control get +1/+1 and have haste.
Hell yeah. Anthem on my satyrs. Give them haste.
Yep. Satyr tribal.
So many satyrs. Like
But
20.
I think the most interesting part about this is his last ability. Whenever you attack with 3 or more creatures, you may discard a card at random. If you do, draw 2 cards. So it's pretty strong card draw in red and green. Obviously, discarding at random is really, really bad and will probably hurt you most of the time. But drawing 2 cards is really good, especially in a aggro strategy. So what I would want in a dream draft is just drafting satyrs and just making satyr tribal work. And especially if you draft this set, discarding things into your graveyard doesn't hurt as much as in other formats. But I don't know how good it's going to be.
So the one I've got on mine is Storm Herald. So 2 in a red for creature human shaman for a 3/2. It's got haste, and when it enters the battlefield, return any number of auras from your graveyard to the battlefield attached to creatures you control. This is on Cory's list, and it's kind of insane.
Yeah.
Then it also has exile those auras at the beginning of your next end step. If those auras would leave the battlefield, exile them instead of putting them anywhere else. So massive, massive downside. But you play this card, you're looking to win. Problem is that red auras is not great.
No.
So really, you're looking at Naya. And again, you got to go greedy, but at least you're in green.
Exactly.
So you can help a little bit with that. But yeah, it's still...
Yeah, I think it's really aggressively costed because you're going to need to do it and some other stuff in the same turn. But the fact that I think it's just a really good build around because you can load your graveyard up with stuff.
And because it's costed that way because there's a setup cost as well. Like you can't just play that turn 3 and hope that you're going to have enough auras to win.
Yeah,
The thing is that if you have that in hand and you can just play super aggressively and like quote unquote play dumb.
Yeah.
And just like
let your shit
swing
die.
Yeah, exactly.
You can play creatures, suit them up, swing, get them killed,
And like
get some damage in, and then get
if you've
those
got,
auras
I don't know,
back.
say a satyr token that can't attack, and you're like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm gonna put +3/+3. You go attack, man. Oh, you died. Oh darn.
But you removed a creature or whatever.
Yeah, whatever. Like you trade out, and
Yeah,
All right.
I think there's a lot of value.
I think it has massive potential. I think it's like 5 color auras, I think would be super dumb and fun to play.
Yeah,
so that's like
100%.
That's the dream
That
goal.
is
That's
super
like
dumb.
top tier dream. But realistically,
Yeah.
I think
Yeah, I think outside of draft, I think just Stormheld is just a really good constructed card.
for sure.
You can make a really good. There's probably like some weird modern deck you can do with
Yeah.
Eldrazi
I think that
Conscription. Some
You could
dumb
try and
shit.
yeah. Oh man, that'd be intense.
Exactly.
Yeah, if you could like discard your enchantments.
Yeah, I mean,
Like the World's
it's
Heroes
just
at
like
that
with
point.
a Thrill of Possibility, discard 1 and then draw 2. You play that on turn 2, you discard your Eldrazi Conscription,
It gets +10/+10.
and then turn 3 you play your Storm Herald, you automatically suit up your
Or
Eldrazi
that dumb
Conscription.
fucking colossal hammer or whatever. Yeah.
Well, no, because
No.
that's an equipment. This is only auras.
Oh, you're
So
right.
it limits
I'm
it
joking.
in a weird way.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you just swing with a 10-13 or a 12-13 Annihilator 2
You could do a bit of damage. Yeah.
on
you're-
turn 3.
Yeah, your opponent's not recovering from that.
No,
very
that's
easily.
that's pretty brutal.
All right. Away from the dream train here. Let's get back into the beers.
Them beers.
Beers.
So I've been sipping on the Founders All Day IPA Session Ale, and it's very middle of the line. Honestly, I was kind of digging it because it's like a sessionable IPA. It wasn't too obtrusive for me, but it's kind of that novelty has worn out. Just yeah.
So it's opened up a lot more. The hop characteristics are way more on the nose now than they were before, which is great. But the flavor is still.
It's just kind of boring, unfortunately.
I believe Cory said mellow, and that is the word we're going to use.
Yeah. We were just talking about satyrs, so I was thinking lustful party animals, and I get mellow.
Yeah, I never thought that we would be like downtrodden because this IPA is
wasn't
not
extreme
Yeah,
enough.
it's not intense.
Yeah, exactly. Because
Fuck me up
all
with
the
that hop,
IPAs you get
Super
are just
hopped
in
mega
your
ale.
face, and this one, it's
It's
pretty chill.
yeah. I
It's
think,
good. Like,
Yeah.
I,
Oh, yeah.
I do like. I will revise my earlier statement about not really liking it too much. I think it is good, and I think that that's like exactly the kind of beer that you want on a like summer or like early fall, where it's like nice, drinkable, sessionable, but it's not going to fuck up your palate.
Yeah.
And if you're someone who's venturing into IPAs but isn't there yet, this one's
yeah, absolutely.
much easier.
Yeah, I think it's kind of a weird thing to say, but this might be like the Bud Light of IPAs.
That's exactly what I was
It's
thinking.
the
It's
most
a Coors
approachable
IPA.
IPA I think I've ever had.
Yeah.
Like
I think it's more
anybody
like
could have it.
Rolling Rock or Pabst.
Yeah, it's just one
Beer.
of those just like B grade beers or just
Yeah, it has the flavors
Quote, unquote,
of beer, right?
Easy,
But
yep.
it's approachable.
And yeah, all of those are sessionable and approachable for a reason because that's how they want them to be. And I think they made this one like that. So I had the Griswold's Holiday Ale from Red Rock. Shout out. This one, I don't know, I was kind of down on it before, but it's definitely grown on me a lot more. I guess I got the holiday spirit, just talking about satyrs and stuff, just partying. But like we were saying, it's kind of like a pumpkin spice without the pumpkin. I think it's
It's really more like apple pie spice, not pumpkin spice.
yeah,
They're
it's
very similar though.
it's
Like,
just
that
it's
kind of
that
five
holiday spice.
cinnamon, nutmeg, coriander.
Coriander, ginger,
Cloves.
little allspice.
Cloves,
yeah.
yeah.
Just your generic spices. And I don't mean generic in a bad way because it's a really good beer. And I think the spice characteristics helps elevate it above what I think would be just an otherwise middling ale. I really like it. What do you guys think?
I like this one. I think it's really good. It's kind of
Jesus, I know you read this before, but it's 8.5%.
Yeah, it's large and in
wow.
charge.
I would have never guessed actually.
I mean,
the
how
spice
much
really
sugar's
hides
in
that.
there?
Yeah,
Like-
you can't taste any of the alcohol, but it's good.
It is
Red Rock, I
just a
see
little
you.
earthy. I don't think it's going to be my beer of the show, though. We're about to turn the corner onto what I believe might be the beer of the show.
Spoilers.
Yeah, Hopkins does a damn good job.
I think this might be beer of the show.
I like it.
It's delicious. I don't really like to have a lot of coffee at one point in time, but I have a quart of coffee beer, and I'm just like super happy with it. It's delicious. It's smooth, not quite creamy, even though it is a coffee and cream stout.
Yeah, I think just the smoothness of it is that cream part.
Yeah,
Because it's not really a cream ale.
it
but-
almost has the creamy texture without the weight
Yeah.
of something being creamy.
Yeah, it definitely is like, it doesn't sit with you like a lot of dark beers do.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it honestly finishes pretty quickly. Like you would think that dark coffee kind of stuff would stick around on the back of your tongue, but it doesn't. It is pretty bitter, but it's fast.
Yeah, and it's just that malty, just coffee bitter.
Yeah, it's
that
not super
a lot of
sweet,
people like.
which I like.
Yeah, so with this, like, don't get me wrong, I'm more than happy to name this as beer of the show, right? It's my favorite beer style. It's a milk stout. It's one of my favorite just like general flavors when it comes to stouts in general, which is nice coffee bitterness, but that's still like sweet and chocolatey nature that you get out of them. And then it's just smooth as hell. Like it's got, I mean, like you're like, I'm just checking off the list of like things I want out of a stout.
Yeah, it really does check all the boxes of what makes a really good beer.
Yeah, I'm putting it top number one.
Putting it at the top?
Number one for
Number one.
2020.
So Drew tasked us with deciding on our favorite legendary creature to build a commander deck around.
And then Garion said no, so I chose one for him. So Garion, if you have to build a deck around Heliod, New Sun Who Dis, what you got?
So Helioid Sun Crowned.
Heliod.
Sun Crowned, 2 and a white for a 5/5 indestructible legendary enchantment creature god. As long as your devotion to white is less than 5, he's not a creature. Whenever you gain life, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature or enchantment you control.
That's insane.
It's crazy already.
So he's not even done.
No. And then 1 and a white.
Why did I give him a long one to read?
I mean, fine. 1 and a white, another creature gains lifelink until end of turn. So clearly this is mono white, life gain, +1/+1 counters. I assume there's going to be many flyers in the deck. I'm just going to fly over, fuck people up, take their life. It's going to be this gross little drain thing that's very vampiric, and it's not because we're gods in mono white. I wasn't super excited on all the legendary creatures. There's good legendary creatures. I just wasn't like, oh man, I'm building this deck. But honestly, I mean, if you were going to build one, I honestly think this one's the closest to being broken as you can get. I mean, it infinite combos with Walking Ballista, the thing's gross. And just putting him down on the ground there as I stand before 3 fellow mates is all the satisfaction I need. The sighs of dismay.
I'm a little upset you didn't read my like attachments to these, you know.
Life gain and +1/+1 counters. Baby. Hey.
I felt like that was something that you would say.
Oh, I would say it.
And then the next one I was like, definitely. I was like, infinite combo with Walking Ballista, bitches. Wait, that's more of Sean though.
Yeah, that is Sean.
Yeah, sorry, that's my bad. I don't mean to attribute.
Yeah, so
all the Welleses is the same.
So Heliod is incredibly powerful. I don't think it's anything new or spicy that Mono White hasn't done already. Just look at Archangel of Thune. But that does not mean it's not incredibly powerful. And like you're saying, Gary, and just the combo potential alone, you can do this
card is
turn 3 and then just the very next turn probably win the game.
Yeah, this card, when Cory and I like first had our conversation about it, it was kind of like, oh, this card is going to get other cards banned.
Yeah, it's super good, but it's kind of super good in the boring way, where it's just like, oh, I play Heliod, and then, yeah, next turn, probably going to win. So I was like, okay, cool.
Good for you, buddy.
Yeah. But I don't know. All the gods are super dope. I'm a huge fan of all the gods, but I think
Do you have a god tribal deck in the works?
Yeah, he's realizing my like original dream from like years ago.
Yeah, because Drew's favorite set of all time was Theros. And so for as long as we've been playing Magic, we was like, yo, gods are dope. Let's make a deck. And then just like,
it's been so hard to get it to work.
Yeah, just devotion is a really hard mechanic to build around unless you focus it down. And 5-color gods doesn't have any focus.
Yeah, it's specifically devoted to not being devoted.
Yeah, so it's a different beast. But I think Heliod is just, the previous Heliod was probably on the bad scale compared to the other original gods.
Yeah, he was fine.
Yeah, I guess middle of the road. But this one, whew.
Yeah,
they did not mess around.
Very good.
Especially because for 3 mana.
Speaking of not messing around, Cory, you just want to throw your commander into the graveyard.
Yeah, so I think this is one of the more interesting legendary creatures in the set. It's one of the Titans. So it's Kroxa, Titan of Death's Hunger, for black and a red. A
2 mana.
6/6 legendary creature, Elder Giant. When it enters the battlefield, sacrifice it unless it escaped. So that's the downside for having a 2-drop 6/6.
But what happens when he ETBs or attacks?
When he ETBs or attacks, each opponent discards a card. Then each opponent who didn't discard a non-land card this way loses 3 life. That doesn't sound very like a lot, but turn 2, having to discard a card is so detrimental.
Yeah, this card's massive in non-EDH formats, and the potential it has in EDH, I'll let you Go on.
Yeah, so the last part is the escape mechanic, which is black, black, red, red, and exile 5 other cards from your graveyard. And this sounds like a pretty big downside, but Rakdos does not give a shit about discarding its entire hand for just
there's a lot of cards,
bad
especially
effects.
in Commander, that you actively want to discard for its madness cost. So.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but we still
Madness-
need that in the graveyard in order for escape to work.
Yeah, that's true.
But I think this is a really, really powerful effect, really, really early on. And then just the fact that you can probably get to exiling 5 other cards and 4 mana so fast. You
In Commander, it's...
could probably reliably do it on turn 4 in Rakdos with the build around that you want to go for. But just the hand disruption and the punishment that this deck would do, I think just makes it a very powerful card, not only in EDH, but how I would build a deck is really just discard effects and just all that, what's the name for it?
Wheel?
Wheel effects, but just punishment effects. Just like, you want to play the game, you're taking damage. Just so like Zozu the Punisher and just a lot of stuff like that where
Gross.
you're just taking damage no matter what you do. And I think just having hand attack on top of that as a commander that you can't get rid of just cements it as just putting you in the dirt. Okay, Drew.
I like how I said gross, and I'm about to say some gross
Yeah,
shit
you
here.
had some nasty stuff coming on.
Yeah, which is really funny because the commander really is so unassuming. So we've got Dalakos, Crafter of Wonders. So he's 1 blue-red.
Aggressive.
Another 3-mana commander.
I mean, let's be real. We want to keep that mana cost as low as possible.
Yeah,
we want to get those
really
out.
good.
Especially when he's a 2/4 Merfolk Artificer. So we got some nice red Merfolk action here. Legendary creature, of course, because he is my commander, and I want to just abuse the crap out of his ability. So
All
he's
the
got
ramp.
Tap, generate, colorless, colorless. So we've got 2 colorless, and spends mana only to cast artifact spells or activate abilities of artifacts. And what is, one of the best things that you can have in Commander?
Equipment.
Like Swiftfoot Boots or Lightning Greaves. I guess one of those is a bad example for this next one. But equipped creatures you control have flying and haste. So having an equip cost for free basically on your commander is insane, right? Especially if your commander is granting flying and haste to equipped creatures. So I kind of just want to abuse the shit out of this.
Oh, yeah.
And abuse untaps and kind of quote-unquote cheat mana by generating a shitload of mana from my commander and just have massive artifact board state that I can just like do whatever I want with, right? The way I kind of think about this one is think Kiki Jiki, but artifacts, but probably also with Kiki Jiki.
100%.
Like,
He makes it.
yeah, like, I don't know. I was like, do I need to say anything else?
Just think
about
about
that?
Kiki Jiki where
Yeah.
it just does Kiki Jiki stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's weird in Commander, especially where you talk about like Kiki Jiki stuff, and like everyone understands if they've played against or around a Kiki Jiki. Those that don't, Kiki Jiki allows you to do a lot of random shenanigans that involve tapping and untapping things. Kiki Jiki makes a copy of a creature when he taps. If you have a creature that enters the battlefield that untaps a creature, then Kiki Jiki goes kind of infinite with that, and then you just win the game because of that. I kind of want to do the same thing with artifacts and equipment, but also if you put in Memnarch, I'm sure he has some epithet to describe him.
Gross.
But he turns all other permanents into artifacts, and then he allows you to steal them. I don't really care about the last part. I just turn all of my things into artifacts, so that way, if I'm abusing this untap and tap shenanigans, then I just have mana to pay for that. So basically, like, think building a Memnarch deck, building a Kiki Jiki deck into one.
God, that sounds gross.
And then have just, like, busted equipment.
I assume Emery's in this deck.
Oh, of course.
All right.
Emery is bae.
Emery is
She's
dope.
not in, or she's not in any deck.
Yeah, can you cast Emery? Why is she not in your deck? All right,
so-
I want to just run down top 3 cards you would put in one of your EDH decks. Or just maybe you'd build around a deck because of the card. So for me personally, got Underworld Dreams. It's just a good card.
back.
Yeah. The fact that it's that uncommon is great. I think that they were allowed to do that because having to pay black for a card is a lot. So whenever opponent draws a card, it deals 1 damage to that player. So in Wheels decks and, mass draw card decks, this card's phenomenal. It's also enchantment. I play a lot of enchantment, especially black, white, green. Actually, I should play everything but red. So
You got to play red, bro.
yeah, I mean, I'm trying. I'm getting there. Next one, Prerelease, Bronze-Blooded, Haste Enabler, and for some reason I got Gamble and Sneak Attack mixed up. I was like, these are the two best red cards. What's going on here? But yeah, having Sneak Attack, like, I want to build that Torbran deck, and I think that putting Prerelease in there would just be, I mean, both would just be exceptional.
Yeah.
Last one I have is Hateful Eidolon. It's 1 mana, has lifelink, and whenever an enchanted creature dies, draw a card for each aura you control that was attached to it. There's literally only one deck that I would put this in, and it is my Daxos deck. Daxos always gets targeted, which makes sense. He's the commander. He's what everything works around. So to have that on there, one, it's an enchantment for 1 mana, which is great. That really like helps to fuel Daxos. But he's always got this giant target on his back. So it's a way to help alleviate that a little bit, because there are a lot of enchantments that I put on Daxos to protect him, and if he gets wiped, it's a lot to get back.
Yeah.
And so having that just be like, okay, he died, he had like 2 or 3 enchantments, get those cards. It's helpful. It's a little bit helpful. Obviously, it's not as much as just like, you know, hey, I've got my commander, but you do what you can. Cory
to alleviate that
and
pain.
Garion both have the same one on your list, and I was going to put it as my number 1, and then saw that you both had it on your list, and I was like, I want it.
Yeah, so this is a banger. It's Dryad of the Elysian Grove.
So this is like the Greek Elysian, but spelled with an I, because it's different.
Ooh. So it's 2 and a green for a 2/4 enchantment creature nymph. You may play an additional land on each of your turns.
Literally
Stop.
nothing else you say matters.
Yep.
So good.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Oracle of Modiah.
Dig
Okay.
it.
Yeah.
Half of Azusa.
Yeah. The next part,
Swordtooth.
I think, is also very important, but it's lands you control are every basic land type in addition to their other types.
Wait, so I get to play more lands and I get to color fix?
Yeah. On a 3-drop.
Yeah, this is why this was all 3 of our number 1s. It's not, the best card that's ever been printed, but it's one of those ones that if you have green in the deck, you're playing the card, pretty much.
Yeah, so this card goes into Land Matters decks. Just green, good stuff where you just want to ramp. And probably every 5-color deck.
I think so.
Because
probably 4-color decks.
Fixing and ramping are what those decks worry about the most, I think.
This also triggers Cabal Coffers. Me and Drew were talking about it earlier. Like, this is one of those ones that if you can splash into something like that where you're just trying to fatty out a bunch of mana, like that's what the card does.
Yeah. I think this card is just so good at what it does.
But I think that they did a good job on this because they made it a creature.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Because this is exploration plus...
Yeah, so it's exploration plus prismatic omen
into one card.
On one card.
Exploration, obviously, good card, you know.
It's
1 mana. Prismatic Omen, solid. That's 2 mana, and together we get 3 mana.
Yeah, but I think
Totally
you nailed it on the head with if this was just an enchantment, fuck. It'd be too hard to get rid of. Yeah. It's just, oh, God.
Yeah, so I don't think this breaks limited or anything, but it's just a really good commander card.
Really good.
And so the next one I have is Heliod's Intervention. And so we talked about the intervention cycle off camera, and we had some mixed...
camera? Garion, I told you to stop recording.
We had some mixed opinions, but I think this one is really good, especially in EDH. So it's X, white, choose 1, destroy X target artifacts and or enchantments, or target player gains twice X life. So it's an instant, and I think in EDH, you're only ever going to play the first one, destroy X target artifacts or enchantments. And for 4 mana, it's just a return to dust. And I think it only gets better from there. So I think this slots into a lot of...
Every deck that plays Return to Dust.
Exactly, yeah, because it's modular. Because if you need to get rid of 3 things, then you can. But with Return to Dust will always get rid of 2 or less, while this will...
It scales.
It scales well with the game.
And that's one of the things that's really hard with Commander is that if you draw into your enchantment removal or your artifact removal or whatever it is late in the game, there might be more than one thing you need to get rid of. And you're like, well, it kind of helps, but not really.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, obviously there's a bias when I'm in the play group because I do play non-creature permanents more than creature permanents as far as like my decks are concerned. But having a card like this, I'm not really that big on it specifically, just because I would rather just destroy all. But
yeah, I think especially in mono white decks, that because a lot of enchantment destruction is either targeted or it's everything. And so this is semi one-sided. Because you might have enough mana to get rid of every other enchantment on the board besides your own. Or you might just have enough to get
Not in mono white, you don't.
You're right.
Joke's on you.
But I think just at worst, it's just another Return to Dust. But
Yeah, I think that's a good comparison that I hadn't looked at before. But
yeah, it's not like the best card. I just think it's a really good option that it's just one of those cards that people can look at and be like, oh, this is a good upgrade for this deck.
all right, Cory, you got one more.
Yeah,
Make
so
it count.
the last one is Furious Rise. 2 and a red for a red enchantment. At the beginning of your end step, if you control a creature with power 4 or greater, exile the top card of your library. You may play that card until you exile another card with Furious Rise. So this is another form of mono red card draw, which I think is dope.
Draw again.
Yeah. That's the downside is that it exiles, but the good part, and it's a new thing that we haven't seen, is it exiles until you exile another card with this. Usually they're exiled either at the end of turn or at the end of your next turn, but this just stays exiled. So if you do exile just your bomb that you can't get to on the next turn, you can just have it stick around for a while. But the downside, obviously, is the power 4 or greater. So it leans towards just big swingers instead of low to the ground.
So the satyrs.
Not satyrs.
Swingers.
No, not satyrs. Forget the satyrs. But so it's not low to the ground aggro burn decks that are going to use this. It's
is
the
that
bigger decks. Yeah. So I think I'm going to throw this into my Boar God deck because he's a 6/6. So I'm always going to have access to a creature with power 4 or greater. So I think this is more limited, but it's still card draw.
I mean, yeah, we'll take it where we can get it.
I dig it. And it's card advantage.
Yeah, it's an
card
extra
draw, which
card.
is good.
Yeah.
So Dryad of the Elysian Grove was my number one. Real good. And then my second one was Helioid Sun Crowned. So we created an EDH deck around this. We don't have to really explain that. He's good. And I think he is also good in the 99. Like, clearly you're never going to be upset to draw this card.
Yeah, I think we sort of touched on it, but this isn't a new strategy for white. It's just a really, really good way to do this.
Yeah, I think, honestly, with Heliod, my favorite thing about him is in the 99. Like, obviously, we were tasked with building a commander deck, but a mono white commander deck has its limitations. But this slotted into a Selesnya deck or a Naya deck or, whatever the fuck else you're doing. Like, I think that's when you're like, oh, yeah, I drew it. Here honestly, we fucking go, baby.
It feels very Selesnya.
Yeah.
Right.
Selesnya
with those counters.
Orzhov, just like life gain.
Yeah.
True.
Stuff.
Yeah. All right. The last one you have is the generic, obviously it's good in Commander with limitations.
I think this card name spiked a lot of people's interests, and then
it's
like,
very
I guess that's
polarizing.
True. Yeah,
like I was looking on Reddit about this card. People just like, why they just want to call everything Lotus. What the? Just like people.
Yeah. So it's Nyx Lotus. It's 4 colorless for a legendary artifact. He enters the battlefield tapped. It's a flower.
Yeah, I was going to say
genderize this flower.
It's a creature.
It has both genders, Gary. It's a flower.
They enter the battlefield tapped. Actually, I'll just read the card. Nyx Lotus enters the battlefield tapped. Tap it, choose a color, add an amount of mana of that color equal to your devotion to that color. So again, this is one of those risk versus reward cards. Obviously, it's not the best card. You have to build around it. But I think it's one of those...
it feels like a win more card.
Yeah, it's one of those talisman-esque kind of cards. The talismans are really good. But like, it helps you fix for what color you need. It helps you get that extra turn or two jump in mana, and it scales. You know what I mean? You might untap with this and be able to gain 2 colored mana, or you might gain 12. You know what I mean? Like, it just depends on what the deck's doing, but the build around I think is cool. I didn't even really think of that being a Lotus card. Like, it's definitely not powered up to be especially Nyx Lotus.
See, that's the thing.
Nyx is supposed to be like the fucking mana.
And Lotus is another loaded word in
That's
Magic.
true. Underwhelming for the name. I'm sorry. I will agree to that. I didn't even think of that. But
yeah, I think personally
cool
this card is underwhelming only because it comes in tapped.
That's true. You can't start off with it.
Yeah. If it didn't come in tapped, this card would be too good.
It could be mana neutral the turn you play it.
Yeah.
That's true.
But like Garion, you said, it is insanely scalable.
Yeah.
Like sometimes this might do nothing, but sometimes it will double your mana.
Yeah, with this one,
and it's colored, which is a big thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
This one, I feel it very much is just a expensive artifact version of Nykthos. But I think that's fine. Like, you put it in the monocolored decks that need it, and when you need it, and it's going to be good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the ceiling on this card is insane in the right deck, but I think
the floor is also.
The floor is just, it's really, really like large because it comes in tapped, and the fact that sometimes it will come in and literally do nothing. It will just be a waste of a turn.
Yeah, if you don't have any permanents out that have pips.
Yeah.
That's true.
Womp womp.
So I think it's risky, but
man, I did not
could be
think
worth it.
that is the worst fucking name for that card.
yeah,
That is
I think it's a
card.
bait,
The
especially because it's
Nyx Lotus.
legendary, so you can only have one out.
Yeah.
It kind of sucks.
Which, in Commander, which we're talking about, doesn't really matter.
No, it doesn't really matter, but
Still, though, they shouldn't have named it that.
yeah, but obviously this is only good in monocolored decks.
Yeah.
All right. So, gone through all of that. Do we have any speculation for how this set is going to impact EDH? Specifically, like, we talked about, bangers from the past couple sets, right? I mean, Heliod, we can speculate for Pioneer with Walking Ballista. Modern, same, but I expect bans quickly on that. Is there anything else that you think is going to make a big splash, massive impact?
I think commander-wise, not really, because besides Perforos, the commanders we've seen are pretty meh. They're just strategies that we've already seen before, and like having an indestructible sneak attack in your command zone is really, really good. But other than that, it's just like I can do some blink stuff. I can draw some cards with Erebos, and which shout out to Erebos. Erebos is really good, but it's just like the same stuff. But I think there's a lot of cards in this set that will just slot into a lot of 99s just to help upgrade it. And I think one of those is Nyx Bloom Ancient.
Yep.
Which is a 4 green for a 5/5 enchantment creature elemental with trample. If you tap a permanent for mana, it produces 3 times as much of that mana instead.
A permanent,
not a land.
Yeah, so I think this got the internet all up in a tizzy because of just how insane it was. And people were asking judges for rules clarifications on mana abilities and all this crazy stuff, which I think just goes to show you how much of a splash this card is going to make.
Again, though, it feels like a win more card.
Yes, obviously, especially at 7 mana to make 3 times as much mana. If you're not already winning, I don't know what you're doing.
I think that you just play Zendikar Resurgent over this most of the time, just because whenever you play a creature, you also draw a card.
Yeah, I think
that extra card advantage is why Zendikar Resurgent is worth playing.
Exactly, yeah. I think
like there's cheaper mana doubles.
This goes in all of those decks, all those big mana decks. And if you can cheat this out in some way, which in EDH you're probably going to, then it, like cards, mana doublers like Mirari's Wake or Vorinclex that just put you so far ahead. I think this is just another one of those cards.
Yeah, but like Dryad of the Elysian Grove, it's an enchantment creature, right? And that was kind of like when we talked about in our group chat. It's just like it has double the weaknesses, right?
Exactly.
Whereas
I think that's good card building.
Right. And the Mirari's Wake and Zendikar Resurgent are both just enchantments. They're a lot harder to remove. This is a creature. Path is very common. Swords, also great. Chaos Warp, doesn't matter, I guess.
Yeah. But I think on the other reasoning, recurring creatures is also a lot easier.
True.
And so I think the fact that it has multiple card types makes it balanced. But at the same time, this card is stupid and should not be made.
Yeah. If this comes around back to you, like doubling your mana, usually you're able to just dump your hand.
Yeah.
Yep.
Tripling your mana, you are dumping your entire hand. You're activating every ability that you have. Like
you should be winning the game.
Yeah,
if
that
you can get
should
a rotation with this.
Is there anything that would strike you as like an immediate staple, like good removal, good ramp, anything like that?
So
that
I think
2 mana black destroy creature is pretty fucking cool.
that is pretty good.
I think
in mono black decks, I think.
Yeah, in mono black, that's fair.
I think I think people should pay attention to the interventions because they have 2 abilities on each of them. They're pretty versatile and they scale well for formats like EDH. But I think Thassa's Oracle is another lab man. It goes into every lab man deck.
I don't know if it does. Like, your devotion count has to be pretty high, or you have to, like, grant the self-mill, obviously, on that.
Well, no, if you draw your whole deck and then play Thassa's Oracle, you win.
Oh, right.
So if Labman gets exiled, or if alternate Jace gets exiled,
I guess
counters something, it's just literally another Labman win. Yeah, I guess
I forgot that. Like, drawing your whole deck also counts for it. Because I was thinking, like,
that's the thing, because it wins on its
or-
own if you have no deck.
Yeah.
Because it's blue pips. But I don't know if there's a lot of staples. I think there's just a lot of good improvements for a lot of decks, especially enchantment decks. But staples, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean...
Like Heliod might be a staple in mono white. Perforos is obviously really, really good in red decks.
Yeah, I think Perforos is the only one that, like, strikes me immediately as, like, this can go in any and every red deck.
Yeah.
Just because a different version of sneak attack, like, you're keen to play that anyways.
Yeah, I think Erebos is a staple in aristocrat decks just because...
Yeah, I mean, you're okay with paying
whenever
the
a
extra
creature you control dies, you can pay 2 life and draw a card.
Yeah.
So you just want to keep doing... You just keep getting gas.
Yeah, if you've got a free sack outlet and a way to just generate shitloads of creatures, like,
Yeah.
you're super happy with that. I don't know. Like, this set, and I mean this in a good way, doesn't have anything that, like, smacks me as, this is the card, right? Like, yeah, we've listed, our top 5 cards, and we could say that there is a best card in the set, but I don't think that it's one of the sets like Eldraine was, where there's a lot of meh and a couple of, like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Like, it's just all decent.
Yeah, it's all solid.
Real quick, I'm going to add a section to our outline. Best artwork.
You can't just throw a curve.
3, 2, 1, go.
Ashiok's really good. All of the promo god cards are super dope, and like the demigods, like the constellation versions are really sick. I really like the legendary spider. I think it's dope. I don't know if the card's really good.
Hold basic lands.
Oh,
The basic land
lands.
constellations are incredible.
out of
They're
10.
literally the best lands, in my opinion, right now. Even better than Unstable. And I'm sure that my opinion will go back to Unstable like it always does. But
Putting
at
them
this
side by
moment,
Unset lands are too good.
yeah, at this
I
moment,
still really like the Ashiok, but my favorite just artwork is that Elspeth defeats death.
Yeah. The saga art is awesome.
like that
I wish they would do
chipped
full art
tile.
sagas. That'd be so sick.
yeah,
There's too much text. Though.
Yeah.
Where would you put it?
But I mean, they have there's a couple
there's
other
still too much text.
the
cards that
full
have,
art
like, the-
cards.
I mean, I'd be down for it.
Like Damnation and Wrath of God, which have no text.
yeah,
It's true.
But yeah,
no,
sagas do have a
there's
lot.
too much rules. And wouldn't be a Theros podcast, I guess wouldn't be a Theros podcast with me without talking about Elspeth. I think that the card is dope. It was spoiled from someone.
From the get-go.
A long time ago. I think that it kind of demonstrates the potential that Escape could have. Like, you literally just have a Planeswalker that doesn't have a plus ability, which is something that is, I mean, we saw it in War of the Spark, but this is like a major staple mythic of the set. No plus ability. Like, you got to basically, like, use your abilities correctly to get activations on them, just so you can then, use the Escape. I think it's dope.
Yeah. Elspeth has always been like a fan favorite character, and Drew, she's one of your favorite characters, but I think just them bringing her back and making her fucking badass. I think it's just so dope.
Cannot disagree. Like, we talked about, the goods a little bit, but what are the bads? What went wrong with the set? What did WotC not live up to? Like, we talked about, like the power level, and obviously power levels come down, but we all think that's a good thing.
I think the major letdown in this set is the gods.
The satyrs.
On top of the satyrs. I think only bringing back the monocolored gods, Athreos, and having the one new dog,
one to replace
the Clothis or something.
Yeah.
I think that was a big letdown because all of us love the multicolored gods and want them to come back.
But imagine having all of that. That's literally all
it
of
would
the
be too
mythics
much, but I really, really wanted Xenagos and Crewfix and
Xenagos
Phoenix, and I wanted all of them back.
Yeah, but Xenagos went the way of the old caveman.
They could have worked something in.
That's when you're supposed to say, they brought Elspeth
bring
back.
Karametra and Farika, like all of them back.
And Athreos wasn't as good as I'd like.
Oh no,
It was
Athreos
okay,
is so much worse than the old Athreos.
Yeah, but 3 mana Athreos.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean 3 mana gods is just stupid.
Yeah.
Fucking Heliod. But I just think that's the biggest letdown because, like you were saying, just the one-off sets, they could try to cram too much into it already. So I think having the gods would have been too much, but that's what I wanted. Right. But I think it's still awesome to see these old gods back. But that's the one thing I wanted from this set.
All right. If you can pick one best card.
Heliod.
Cory?
I think one that we haven't talked about yet is Shadow Spear.
I really want this.
Dude, I don't know. I want it to be good, but it's like, it's so just like on the knife's edge of being incredible and being mediocre.
I think it's more on the incredible side, but it's a 1-drop equipment, legendary artifact. Equipped creature gets +1/+1, has trample and lifelink. Equip cost of 2, which I think is really, really good. But it also has an ability for 1 generic mana. Permanents your opponent's control lose hexproof and indestructible until end of turn.
That indestructible thing.
So obviously this is the literal god killer spear.
Yeah.
But I think the fact that it's a 1-drop artifact, it can go in any deck, a 2-drop or a 2-mana equipment cost means you can suit it up immediately and get going. And it already gives +1/+1 trample and lifelink. I think those are really powerful keywords that just get tempo moving in any deck. Everybody wants lifelink, especially in limited formats.
And with trample, it's got the scalability.
Exactly. It's always going to get in. And then just once your opponents get hexproof or indestructible to try and do combat tricks and stuff like that, you just pay 1 mana, just 1 mana of any color, leave it open, and you can get rid of that.
It's true.
Yeah, there's a couple lands that do that for hexproof and shroud.
Yeah.
So that's interesting to see it on an equipment.
Yeah, I think this came out of nowhere. No one was
I don't think
this is like
I think
a loaded card.
Yeah,
it's absolutely meant for the gods. That's what's in the set.
For sure. But like in like the story with Elspeth, she gets Heliod's spear, and like that's kind of like her weapon.
Hell yeah.
And so or his sword or something, whatever it is. But like that's her weapon. And so now taking it out of the underworld, I guess is like the story mode there. And I think that's really cool that you have this holy weapon. Elspeth is like the hero of Heliod that gets betrayed by the gods.
Yeah.
You know, and just like all of a sudden, like she comes out and it seems like she's coming with a fucking vengeance. Like she's got the weapon that is the god killer.
Yeah.
And so it's like, that's really cool.
Yeah, so I think this is up there with Embercleave, where Embercleave just slots into decks and just kills people out of nowhere. And it comes down fast and equips early. And you can just start making money moves with this.
Yeah, but if
any
you draw
color.
it on turn 10, you're not upset.
Yeah.
Because you just equipped this to a big fatty. Now you have trample and lifelink. The swing's crazy.
Even if mana, put on your big dude,
say,
keep
even
going,
if you
get you back in the game.
Don't equip it. It still has like leverage on the table.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just threaten. It's
true.
I think it's a really, really solid and very, very aggressively costed card.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know if it's necessarily my top, but Cetessan Champion, having another Enchantress is fantastic, especially one that
so good.
Like gets bumped. And with that Destiny Spinner, like I talked about, giving creatures like uncounterability is awesome. We've seen it before.
2 mana that sticks around.
Right, but then putting it on for your enchantments, like giving your enchantments Shroud and Hexproof is like the only way you could protect it. Like you still always feared counterspells, and so now we kind of have that to buoy us up. But my number one from the set is the reprint, Idyllic Tutor, every single time.
It's hard not to agree.
Like that card has been something that has been expensive and way too expensive for way too long, and now it's like $6-7, something like that
for now.
Yeah, exactly. Like
snatch them up.
Snatch up.
Yeah, I think this is one of the best reprints in a long time.
Agreed. And they've actually had some pretty damn good reprints. I mean, when they reprinted Scapeshift, people were like, holy shit. And then they reprinted Leylines, and everyone's like, holy shit.
Fuck those ley lines, man.
Yeah.
Good.
I'm glad I bought the Leylines when I did, because they're
smart decision.
I should have bought the Voids. I should have just paid the $15 or whatever for them.
Pioneer ruined us all.
Seriously, we didn't know how good everything was.
I know. I wish I'd had a Magic the Gathering Wizards of the Coast friend that could have tipped me off.
A bunch of
that's
insider
probably illegal.
trading.
Yeah,
I was gonna say it seems like
seems illegal.
I was gonna say like legal gray area, but it's not. It's actually just 100% illegal. And speaking of that, we want to encourage you guys to be safe, be responsible.
Don't drink and drive.
Don't drink and drive.
Don't drink underage.
Don't drink underage.
Don't be.
Don't drink and drive. Don't drink underage.
Listen to Cory. Cory is a wise man.
We do want you to have fun, and if you're drinking along with us, we want you to be responsible if you're doing so. Obviously, I've enjoyed a quart. That's a double pint.
Ooh, this here's 2 pints.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, we do like encourage you guys to have fun, even with like the jokes that we tell here. But be safe, be responsible. We don't want, especially this time of year, with icy roads and everything.
Oh yeah, it's
like
getting sketchy out there.
Yeah, the cost that is associated with those activities is significantly higher.
The CMC is too high.
Yeah.
The floor is very low.
Yeah.
You guys, we have gotten so many suggestions for some delicious beers that we should be getting onto. We're trying real hard to order those from out of state. If you guys have favorites, still definitely send them. We're on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at UUD Podcast or Untap Upkeep Drink. We're always trying to find those comments and find the gems. We've gotten direct messages on Instagram and Twitter.
Got one today.
Yeah, I mean, we're trying to grab these beers, but we also love talking to you guys. I think we're already starting to formulate a plan to potentially have at least part of the crew show up to MF Vegas. So we want to get these conversations going and maybe meet you guys in person here soon.
If any of you have recommendations and are going to be in Vegas, holler.
Oh, God.
Yeah, we're definitely going to have a meetup.
Yeah.
Try and get a lot of beer talk going.
Have a beer swap.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. Bop. That was...
So thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for being stoked on this set, because I'm stoked on this set. If you guys are in Utah, we're going to the Game Grid Midvale for the pre-release. Come say hi. Come play some games.
Is that what you're doing?
I'd love to meet you guys. And as always, like we like to say on this podcast,
have fun.
Especially with the set.
Theros is going to be sick.